So what's your names and why was it important for you guys to come here today?
Well, my name's Therese, and I'm a young person in long-term recovery. I just celebrated 5 years, and it was really important for me to be here today because when I was trying to get into recovery, there weren't a lot of services in my area, and I really support getting those resources and helping other young people do what I have done.
Hi, I'm Isabel Rodriguez. I'm not a person in long-term recovery, but I do support it in any way, shape, or form, and that's why I'm here. I see so many obstacles, and we're just trying to do what we have to do legally to make it right and help our people.
Hi, good morning. I'm Janine Stuchin, Executive Director of the Prevention Council of Saratoga County, and I'm here with a number of folks from RAISE, Recovery Advocacy in Saratoga, and we're here because we're really at a crossroads, and we're excited to advocate for better services, better treatment, and a real understanding that recovery is possible from addiction, and that addiction needs the treatment that other chronic diseases receive and get from New York State.
Just tell us your name and why it was important for you to come here today.
Yeah, my name is Paul Mead, pastor of Gospel Lighthouse Church in Hudson Falls, New York. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and it was important for me to be here today to share the hope that I have in my heart through recovery. I know today that my life has been changed through the power of God in my life, and I want to share the power of God with other people so other people can come to understand that with God all things are possible and people really do recover, and that's the message. So thankful to be here today, and we believe for greater things. Amen.
Just tell me your name and why it was important for you to come here today.
My name is Julianne Brennan, and it's important for me to come here today because my son, who's 24, has the disease of addiction, and we just need to get the word out that addiction is a disease, and we need to treat it properly, and also for families, that it's a family disease, and we need to help these families find treatment and find support.
Good morning, everybody. Or I should say, good morning, all you wonderful people. We have with us today people in recovery, family members, friends, and we have a very exciting day ahead of us. This is our 7th annual Advocacy Day, and we have a great opportunity to go meet with our elected officials and let them hear our voices. They've been hearing voices of other kinds of folks on a regular basis, especially pharmaceutical companies that have all the money. No, they've been going on but now let them hear from us about what those pharmaceutical drugs are doing to our loved ones and our children, because they have to hear that. You know, when Friends of Recovery first started, we started because we wanted to advocate for people in recovery, and we were concerned about the stigma of addiction. People looked at our folks as having moral shortcomings, and they were criminals, and we were locking them up. Our prisons were filled with people that had a substance abuse problem. They're finally waking up and saying these people don't belong there. Well, I'd like to think, part of the work that we're doing in advocating for that population. So we want you to go out there today, push along, let them hear your personal stories, and I think you'll do some convincing. You should also know that I'm probably in recovery more than most people in this room. I'm in recovery for 51 years.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Charlie. Charlie came into recovery when he was 8 years old. So I just want to say welcome on behalf of the board for New York, and thank you for participating in our 7th annual statewide Advocacy Day. We've continued to organize and mobilize individuals and families from across the state. Our collective voices have grown stronger and louder, and over the past 2 years, we've made measurable progress. This year, we focus on increasing funding for recovery supports as we work together to combat the addiction epidemic of our times. And we also call on our friends in the medical community to work with us in establishing a training protocol for responsible prescribing of narcotic drugs. Very important. I think for our purposes, we're going to focus on just a couple. One is the physician education. And then the other one that's really important is what's happening with folks who are administered Narcan to save their lives. I just want to give you a sample from Suffolk County. In the 4-year period 2012 through 2015, over 1,800 lives were saved by Narcan. Suffolk County only, 1,800 lives. But the tragic part of that is that more than 90% of those individuals were returned to injecting drugs within 48 hours. We need to do something to change that. And that's one of the things that we're pushing for, too, this year. We want to see folks get connected somewhere so that they can get evaluated, assessed, referred to treatment if indicated, or if not, we want to see them get connected directly to a recovery coach or a family navigator, somebody who can help them find and stay in the recovery process. So that's all. Thank you for participating in our growing movement to end discrimination in addiction. Look forward to having a great day. Thank you, everybody.
All right, next I want to ask Pastor Paul Mead, who's been working with us and Friends of Recovery up in Warren and Washington County, to just do an invocation to get us started.
Good morning, everyone. I was just wondering this morning, how many of you woke up this morning and saw your shadow? Because if you saw your shadow this morning, that means you're alive. And that's a good thing. And if you're alive, that means you can make a difference in somebody else's life. And that's a good thing. My name is Paul Mead, pastor of Gospel Lighthouse Church in Hudson Falls, New York, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. It wasn't that long ago that I was wandering these streets of Albany, New York, smoking crack and dying. I was homeless, I was helpless, I was hopeless, divorced from my wife and estranged from my family, but that's all over now because God has put my life back together and He can put your life back together and everybody's life back together. I believe it. I believe it. I just want to say, as a person in long-term recovery, what that means to me is that Sheriff Apple just walked through the door and he's not here to arrest me. I can tell you that. And I'm thankful for that. That means that my family has been put back together. I was remarried to my wife. My family was put back together. My life was put back together. My mother was back in my life. My father was back in my life. And I have hope today to spread with everybody. And I just believe it. I just believe it. Today's the day that we will march on this Capitol and we will tell people that there's hope in recovery. There's hope for people in addiction. There's hope for this disease that has taken out so many. And we're here to represent families today with the hope of God in their lives. Can we just thank God?
So again, we just want to thank each and every one of you who've taken time out of your very valuable day to come and be a part of this growing movement. We really thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to, in the interest of scheduling, we're going to change things around a little bit. And what we're going to do is just very, very quickly, I'm going to reintroduce our CEO.
Sorry, one of the challenges is trying to juggle many schedules here. So we're going to do our best to do that. What we're going to do at this point is to go to a couple of our guest speakers because our members from the legislature have to be back in session by 11. So what we're going to do is rearrange things a little bit to be able to accommodate them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through that agenda and do that as quickly as we can. And then we want to hear from all of our recovery speakers, and we need to go over the materials that are in your packet. So at this point, what I want to do is to introduce Senator George Amador. So Senator, if you could come up. Senator Amador chairs the Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Committee in the State Senate, and he's one of the co-chairs of the Heroin Task Force in the Senate as well. And I have to tell you, everywhere I go, I'm running into him. He has been a relentless advocate and support on our behalf. So, Senator Amador.
Thank you. Good morning, and this is great to be with you, and I am so glad that you have this great day here. I know you had media out in the front. They want to know what's going on and how exciting this is, because this is not only awareness, and the Friends of Recovery is just not an advocacy group that wants to talk about how we can get more help and we can deal with treatment and recovery and wraparound services, but also how we can celebrate. Celebrate is the most important thing that we could possibly do, because you who are in recovery have overcome the most difficult thing you can ever face in life, and that's that stronghold and that bondage of addiction. And you need to celebrate. You need to give yourself a very loud round of applause that you can. And not only can you do it, but you can help others do it. You see, we all have a purpose in life. We all have a purpose in life. And the purpose is not to fail, but to take life experiences and to pass them along and to help someone else who may be struggling. And so the stories that are here today that I'm sure everyone will hear, those are stories of victories. Yes, they may sound like they are, stories of loss and despair and discouragement. But I got to tell you, there is victories here and there's testimonies here that only you can bring to someone else who is down in the bottom of the barrel right now, struggling, or maybe looking at their next hit or their next pill or their next bottle or whatever it may be, because of Friends of Recovery and services that we provide, because of even my friends and my listen, I get two, you see these two guys up here? Where are they? Bodyguards. These are not bodyguards. These are my partners. Senator Murphy and Senator Ort have literally brought the task force, the heroin opiate addiction task force, to levels that, we had it good in the state legislature before. These guys have brought it to be great. And we literally have brought it to areas around the state and we're going back to other areas of central New York and the Finger Lakes, and we're going down to Brooklyn, and we're going down to Long Island, that are going to have more task force hearings. But these are my partners. It's not me, it's we doing this together to help, because we want to hear more celebration, we want more victory, we want more testimony, we want you to win. And how we can do that is by helping. So our arms are stretched out wide, our hearts are with you, and we want to thank you for having the courage to overcome the stigma, for helping with advocacy and education, for going through the treatment, identifying to us the quality that New York needs to have and where it needs to have, and the difficulties or the inefficiencies that it may have. And I know someone who will be coming up shortly will probably even talk about that, because we're fortunate enough to have a person who has the compassion. In OASIS, our Commissioner Gonzalez, she's here and she's going to be addressing you, who gets it. So I just want to say thank you all. I see a really good friend of mine who, I got to tell you, he gives me more encouragement than I give him, and that's Danny Savona. I see him in the audience. This guy is a true champion. You are all champions, because we are all going to win this together. God bless you all. Keep it fighting.
All right, thank you, Senator Amador. Our next speaker is Senator Robert Ort. He is the chair of the Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Committee, as well as one of the co-chairs of the Heroin Task Force, out from Western New York. Senator Ort.
Well, thank you for having me. I'll be brief because the longer I go, then that means Senator Murphy has to go afterward, and then he'll be late to get back to session, and he'll probably blame me. So, I had to laugh when Senator Amador when someone said those are his bodyguards. If we were his bodyguards, he would be in a lot of trouble, I can tell you that much. It's a pleasure to be here. The one thing that Senator Amador, Senator Murphy, and I have all in common is we came into the Senate 1 year ago. So we were all new legislators, and we were assigned to the Heroin Task Force as new legislators. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about heroin and drug addiction. I have learned a lot over this past year, and I've learned a lot by being in front of groups like this. And I've learned about by talking to service providers, by talking to families of loved ones who have dealt with addiction, by talking with people who've dealt with addiction, and by talking to law enforcement. I see we have a member of law enforcement here as well. The current heroin epidemic, specifically, there is not one, I always wish there was one thing we could do that would take care of it. But I think everyone in this room knows there's not one thing we can do. There's not one thing that you can do. It's a lot of things. You need a lot of people, pulling in the same direction, and it's got to be comprehensive. And that's why we've done 4 hearings last year all over the state. We're going to do 4 more over the next couple months. And I'm very optimistic we're going to have a comprehensive series of legislation and reforms that really will save lives. I was very happy to hear about the Narcan, the CVS bringing Narcan to their stores to make it more readily available. Now, Narcan isn't the solution, but it's a tool that will save lives to get us to the solution. You can't be recovered if you're not here. You can't go through recovery, you can't go through treatment, you can't get better if you don't make it there. Narcan gives you that opportunity for a lot of folks. To all the people here, I want to say thank you. You're very courageous. As Senator Amador talked about, there's a stigma oftentimes, sometimes we buy into that ourselves, of drug addiction, that there's something wrong with you. It was mentioned I'm the chairman of the Mental Health and Development. I know very often I've learned that a lot of folks who have addiction to drugs or are using drugs or are abusing alcohol, a lot of times there's some self-medicating going on. Could be mental health related issues that are undiagnosed or are being untreated, and that's what often will lead or can lead to the abuse and addiction to drugs and substance abuse. And so we need to remember the mental health component and make sure that we're treating people that have mental health related issues too. And there shouldn't be a stigma around that. If you had a broken arm, you wouldn't think twice about going to the hospital, or at least you shouldn't. If you're dealing with some mental health related issues, you shouldn't think twice about seeking help and having access to services, along with drug and alcohol services as well. I do want to say, though, I know there are some people, you don't have to raise your hand, there's people in this room today that are thinking about someone who's not in this room today. Maybe there's a friend or loved one who's no longer here. They lost their battle to drug addiction or substance abuse addiction. I served in Afghanistan, and I have on my wrist, I have 4 names of soldiers who didn't come back with me. And every day I get up in large part because of them. They get me up to go and continue the fight, to continue the mission, to continue to battle for the things that they died for. Remember the folks who aren't here today, the folks who can't be here today. You are here today. As Senator Amador said, everyone has a purpose in life. Your purpose is to be here. Your purpose is to speak truth to power, to speak about that recovery can happen. It's real. It's a lifetime thing. It doesn't just end. You're recovering forever. And that's okay. But also remember the people who aren't here. They need you to continue to be the advocate for future generations, for future individuals. And I know together, working with these folks right next to me here, and a lot of people who couldn't be here today, we will get there. But again, I want to thank you. I want to thank this organization. I want to thank you for having the courage to be here. You're in my thoughts. You're in my prayers. You, your families, everyone here. And together, we can not only save lives, but we can help to bring an end to substance abuse addiction. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Orr. Our next speaker is Senator Terrence Murphy. He is one of the co-chairs of the Heroin Task Force, and I want to thank Senator Murphy for joining us.
One of his bodyguards, I will tell you. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to be here today, and I mean that. The courageous people that have come out, and what better place in this absolutely gorgeous church. We can all stray away and get lost. God will never leave you. So if there's a place where you feel comfortable, such as this, get to it. I had the privilege of this summer of going down to New Orleans and representing New York State, serving with these two great guys over here, and I mean that. They are great guys and leading the champion of this epidemic that is not only ripping through New York State, Ohio, Tennessee, Utah, which I would have never thought. And we're doing some really good stuff here in New York State, such as the I-STOP program. And these are things that we're going to continue to build on. We've been around the state doing these task force hearings, and we're going to continue to go around the state and do these task force hearings. My background is I'm a chiropractor nutritionist, and what I've learned, it is a direct overprescription of Oxycontin and oxycodone that starts people on this path. And to learn and know the physiology that I know, if that doctor prescribes you that 60 or 90 count, and if you finish it under his orders, you are physiologically hooked. You have to come off. This is something that I promise you, it is on our table and it's loud and clear. To be able to go around the state and represent you guys is just an absolute incredible privilege. To be able to come up here and stand and let you know what we've been doing, hopefully will give you some knowledge and let you know there is people out there fighting for you. There is a place where we are trying to get you to become back to us. And what do I want to say in words is come home. Come home. There's a place. There's a place for everybody. I promise you that. And to be able to team up with two great guys right here, Senator Amador, who's right up in this district right here. You guys have come out and continue to support him because he's been a champion up here. Senator Orr, who's out towards Niagara, the area out there. We've been out there. You're not alone. The stigma of this has got to go away. It's got to go away.
All right, and I know the three senators need to go back because session starts at 11. Really want to thank them both for their leadership and their willingness to join us today. The next speaker is Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal, and she chairs the Assembly Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Committee, and her district is in New York City. Assemblywoman Rosenthal.
Hi everyone, I'm Linda B. Rosenthal. I represent the Upper West Side and parts of Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. It's truly an honor to be here. And I've only been chair for less than a year. Last year I started really near the end of the budget process. So over the past year I've learned a lot. I've met with different groups, served on different panels, and met so many courageous people. And so I'd first like to thank Friends of Recovery for having this and for asking me to speak, and as well as to thank Emmanuel Baptist Church, which, even though I've been in Albany for years, I've never been here, and it's beautiful and a welcoming place. So thank you so much. You know, I find that most people in society have a very myopic view of people who struggle with addiction. They think, oh yeah, it's that junkie on the street. It's that woman who has to give up her kids because she's a bad mother and she's an addict. It's the kid who's no good, never was good, and he's shooting up in school. And those are the caricatures of people. But as I have become chair and have met with so many of you and so many people around, I view people in the grips of addiction in a much different way. And it's something that I feel is part of my mission as chair, to change the perception of people who are struggling with addiction. I met with a woman yesterday. She made me hear she was hooked on pills for 40 years. And she has been free for 3 years. I'm like, what kind of person has that kind of grit and determination and ability to overcome such a soul-possessing addiction? And all of you who are struggling, you know, I really admire your tenacity, and I feel like I'm here to fight for you. So I want to fight the perception, but I also want to fight that you don't have enough services out there. And I've said this often, and I keep saying it, you can get brought back to life from Narcan. And then what happens? What happens after you're here, you have a moment of clarity, you're still addicted, you just got a wonderful back to life. Okay, then what? Most people go back on because they're not freed of their addiction. So I think there must be treatment on demand across this state. And that's one of the things I'm going to fight for. I don't think there's enough money in this budget to provide that. And so that's something else I'm going to be speaking up about, and I need your voice, and obviously you know why you're here, to do the same. Because it's fine to talk about the opiate addiction. It's fine to say, you know, we have to help people. But if you're not putting your money where your mouth is, then it's all for no good. So I really...
All right, moving right along. Our next speaker is Commissioner Arlene Gonzalez-Sanchez from OASIS, the Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services. Very grateful that she's able to join us today and give us some updates. The reality is that OASIS as an organization does amazing work with far too little resources, dollars, and support. And very, very grateful for everything they do. So, Commissioner, if you would come up.
A little short, but that's deceiving. That's okay. So, what time is it? Is it morning still or afternoon? It's morning. Well, good morning. It's really great for me to be here again one more year. I know last year I had a conflict and I wasn't able to come, but every time I have an opportunity, I really like to be here in person. This is a great day, and it's really, really important for me. And it gives me an opportunity to really talk with you more on a personal basis. I want to really start off by, thanking Bob and the board for New York, the board president, Charles Devlin, and all the officers and sponsors and organizational people involved in today's event. Thank you so much for making this a reality year after year. It was also great to see, members of the legislature here whom you heard from. It's very important. That really shows their support and their commitment to our field. So I really want to thank them. I know they had to run out because it is a session day and there are a lot of meetings going on. But I really want to thank them for taking the time to come here and at least greet us. I would be remiss if I didn't, recognize our Albany County Sheriff, Mr. Craig Apple. He's a great partner with Oasis and a lot of us here, and he is here today, which really symbolizes his commitment to continue to work with us. So thank you so much for being here with us. I think I saw John Coppola somewhere. So I also want to acknowledge him. I know he's here somewhere. He may be outside talking to the media from ASAP or on the phone. But thank you so much for being here. And I would be totally remiss if I did not recognize or acknowledge the Recovery Bureau Director, Susan Brandow, from Oasis, and other Oasis staff that's here for the great work that they do and their dedication to the recovery services system. But more importantly, I really want to welcome and thank all of you who are here today in recovery or in support of a loved one in recovery or in support of someone we may have lost to addiction. I know that many of you have come from really far away areas, you know, some from Long Island. I'm from that area too. Get here, but your being here in Albany to talk to your legislators makes it real for them. So as you meet with legislators, it is important to share the message that recovery is possible, that individuals in recovery can live and do live productive and meaningful lives. And you are the faces and voices of recovery. You are the proof that it is possible. And you are the hope and reason that people like myself and some of the legislators fight the fight every single day. So as you meet with your legislators and you do your visits, please remind everyone that because substance use disorder is a chronic disease, treatment alone is not enough. We must invest in recovery. We must help individuals. Recovery is forever, and successful recoveries require health care, a home, a purpose, and a community of family, and that's what we want. To those today who are parents, siblings, and loved ones of someone who is battling an addiction or who lost the fight, please know that I am both humbled and motivated by your presence. I speak to you as commissioner, but more importantly, as a mother, and we are in this together. I know that your advocacy agenda supports additional funding for recovery, support services, and I am happy to report that while you are pushing for more recovery services, we at Oasis are already working things out. So Oasis, under the leadership of Governor Cuomo and support of the legislature, is committed to serving all New Yorkers struggling with addiction and supporting recovery. In a critical part of that commitment is going to be recovery services. In fact, just last week, the governor awarded $1.6 million in funding to support the creation of 7 new recovery clubhouses for teens and young adults who wish to maintain a healthy substance-free lifestyle.
Very good. Thank you very much, Commissioner. The next speaker is Sheriff Craig Apple, the Albany County Sheriff. Craig, if you would come up.
Good morning. So it's a little odd. People are like, well, what's the cop here for? And I always kind of smile that they always have the guy with the gun go last. I never figured that out either. I guess I'm not as intimidating. But so I'll tell you a short story and I'll get moving because I know we're running a little bit late. But, you know, I started as a young officer and I was under the impression of, lock them up. They're using drugs. They got to be bad. Lock them up. We can arrest our way out of it, right? And, I've got 29 years on the job now, and somewhere around 15 years ago, I realized I think this isn't working. I think we might be losing this. And so what do? How do you make that change, And I was never in the, the top seat to make that change, so we could make suggestions, and it always felt like we were stuck in the mud, which I think we were. And, somewhere along the line, we started to, talk to some of our counterparts about, listen, we've lost the war on drugs. So what do? Right? You've got to have some other resources to go to. Let's keep the people off of the drugs. Let's keep them from getting on the drugs. But we'll still continue to be somewhat vigilant about keeping those mid and high-level dealers from bringing those pollutants into our streets and corrupting our kids and to some extent our seniors. And now it's gotten to the point where it's just infecting everybody. And, I run a jail. We got a jail of 1,050. And, we've been fortunate with the commissioner's assistance, and she's about the only one I'm going to leave alone today. With her assistance, we've been able to create some programs in there. We've been able to make that difference on the streets in this capital region because, personally, I think our state has been very negligent in stepping up and getting the funding for the beds, getting the funding for the recovery, getting the funds for the treatment centers. And quite honestly, folks, I'm kind of to the tipping point of telling parents that their son overdosed, or their son or their daughter overdosed, or their father, or their mother, or their brother, or their sisters. We've picked up more damn dead kids in this community over the last 36, 48 months than I've ever seen in 29 years. More kids. 3 kids in Albany County alone last week. And those are just the ones that they're telling us because of that stigma, that attachment that I can't let anybody know my son overdosed. I heard just this week that somebody passed away of pancreatitis. I don't think pancreatitis had anything to do with it, because unfortunately he was an addict. But because of that stigma, and people are starting to get better. I've seen it in the last few months. I've seen people starting to accept it. It's a disease. It's a disease. Let's treat it like we treat everything else. Let's get the funding for it. But instead, what do? We create a task force. I'm really done going to the heroin forums. We've been to the forums for the last 36 months. We've had the task forces. I've been up to the Senate. I've been up to the Assembly to testify, to tell them how bad it is. But I think some people up there are living in that crystal palace. They're in that bubble that until it touches them personally, they're not going to make that step to give us the funding that we need. And it's sad to say that, but it is spreading at a catastrophic rate that it's only a matter of time before it touches. It's obviously touched all of you. It's touched me 10, 12, 14 times over, if not double that. Kids I've coached in baseball. I've got a kid sitting in the Albany County Jail for murder that I coached in baseball for years. I've known him since he was a little kid. Why? Because he's an addict. That's why. People that I've had to go tell their parents who I've coached in baseball that we found your son dead. We found him on the side of the road. We've arrested him for selling his body to feed his addiction, whatever the case may be. The horror stories are, you folks know, you've been there, you've done that, you've seen it, you've lived it. Now we got to get help for everybody else out there, including yourselves. And I credit you for stepping up. We were able in Albany County because I don't have patience. And we couldn't wait for the funding. So I met with the commissioner of Oasis. And we were able to come up with a program in our jail called the SHARP program, the Sheriff's Heroin Addiction Recovery Program. And we were able to put together a pharmaceutical company to come in with Vivitrol. We were able to put together a treatment center to come in, Addictions Care Center of Albany to come in. We were able to get the supervision, the peer-to-peer counseling in a wing in that jail where we put people with addiction issues. And I can tell you something, in 90 days, 90 short days, we've been already to make a difference. We got people out on the streets right now, because when you graduate from our program, we take you to that treatment center. We don't give you the token going, hey, I hope you make it. We take you. And we follow you through, because we want you to live a clean and healthy life. We don't want you back. And so far, we've got people out there with jobs going, you know what? That's the boost I needed. That's sometimes all people need is a kick in the rump and to get them on that clean and healthy life. And that's what we're going to do, and we're going to spread this program throughout the state, and we will make that difference. Thank you.
right. I was going to ask Sheriff Apple when the last time was he got a standing ovation talking about addiction. Thank you very much. All right, what I'm going to ask next to try to move our program along a little bit, we have 4 people that are recovery speakers. If I could ask all 4 of them to come up, that would be very helpful, and then we'll get that piece of the program started. So the first speaker is Shaku Mathai. Shaku has been involved in Friends of Recovery for a number of years. We're thrilled to have him joining us today from Rochester. Right. Shaku, show me your poster. You bet.
So, I'm going to really fast forward here because, one of the things I wanted to tell you about was that what made it possible for me and my family, I'm Indian, born in Kuwait. We didn't want to tell anybody about what was going on. We didn't tell anybody what was happening. But, when you're in the papers or when you're in the hospital or when you're overdosed or when you tried to commit suicide, all of these things kind of show up and kind of make it kind of come out to the front. And so when that happened, my father finally reached out to another man at his church. And he said, my son's in the hospital. He just tried to kill himself. He's on drugs. He's on the streets, not sure what to do. And my father said, this man said 2 things to my father that saved our family's life. He said, me too. His son was also struggling. His son was, along with a bunch of other kids, the families were coming together. And this is in November, December 1985. They started a little clubhouse by renovating an old horse barn, putting a pool table, a few ping pong tables, a few couches, a soda machine. That was our funding source. All right, we called it Students of Brighton Encourage Recovery. This was our recovery center right across from the high school in order to help us stay in recovery. Now, here we are with the state putting $1.6 million into supporting young people in order to support recovery. We really have to tell people thank you for that. That's just one example, and it's not a done deal. So that's why it's important for you to get out there and tell your legislator when you're meeting, what you appreciate and what we still need. There's a lot of that. And so as a person in recovery, as a family in recovery, my family, my parents, we're all so grateful. Nothing that I'm able to do today is possible without that recovery experience, without each of you who have supported me, both here in Albany, in Rochester, all over the state, all over the country. So thank you very much for coming out. It's just such an honor. I'm a founding board member to see all of this happen so many years later and just get a chance to take a turn at the mic. I hope you're next. All right? Come on. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Julianne Brennan. She's a family member in recovery.
I forgot my sign when it came up, so Bob just grabbed it for me. And I hope you guys will bear with me because I'm not too good off the cuff, so I'm just going to read a little something here. First, I want to start off by thanking Friends of Recovery New York and everybody who made Advocacy Day a reality. It is so crucial that we move forward toward recognizing addiction as the epidemic that it is. We must learn more about and improve all aspects of addiction recovery treatment and co-occurring mental illness disorders. That's so important. I was so happy to hear the senator say that. While educating people about all of the many components of the disease of addiction. Furthermore, we must recognize that addiction is a family disease, and we need to let those know who are directly affected by someone else's addiction that there is help and that they are not alone. Some people still don't believe that addiction is a progressive chronic brain disease. Scientific testing and brain imaging have proven that addiction damages and alters brain areas that are crucial to decision-making, learning, memory, and behavior control, which helps to explain the compulsive behaviors and destructive consequences of addiction. Simply put, with addiction, the brain gets hijacked. Evidence-based studies have also shown that therapy, medication, when applicable, and support from family members, friends, and the community are also vital to the recovery process. That's right, the recovery process. While the disease of addiction is incurable, recovery is possible. It's real. But if we don't change the direction in which this country is headed toward regarding the road to recovery, people are going to keep dying. Public misunderstanding of addiction is profound. It is not yet recognized for the disease that it is. Like cancer or diabetes, this disease does not discriminate. It knows no bounds, no color, no monetary status, no intelligence level, no religion or geographical location is exempt. The stigma attached to substance abuse is so devastating that some people with substance use disorders are afraid to try to get treatment, and for those who do, it is just as overwhelming and devastating as the disease itself. When someone has a life-threatening disease, wouldn't it make sense to give the quickest, most intensive treatment immediately? Then, as the patient slowly recovers, their checkups and treatments gradually change in level as they get better. Doesn't that make sense? With addiction, the treatment path is literally backwards. The current concept is to start with the smallest level of treatment for an addicted person, waiting for that patient to fail recovery, at which point they might get lucky, might be elevated to the next level of treatment, if their insurance will cover it, if there's an open spot, and if they're not already dead. This is insane, and it's unacceptable. We wouldn't dream of asking someone with cancer to meet certain criteria for treatment, then kick them out of the hospital if they don't meet that criteria. Patients who have overdosed and have been saved through the miracle of Narcan are being released from the hospital hours later with a, "Do you know how lucky you are?" And that's it. And that would be my son, by the way. Would we treat a cancer patient for 30 days, send them back into the community with no follow-up care, no resources, and just hope for the best? Why then do we treat the disease of addiction so differently from other diseases that are life-threatening? My 24-year-old son is one of the millions of people in this country with the disease of addiction. Is his life less valuable than another because of that? And why on earth would we want to be part of the problem when we can be part of the solution? Stand up, speak up, rise up, do whatever you can to make a difference. With your voice, changes are happening. I've seen it. The folks here today want to make change, but they need our help and our input. We need to be part of the solution. I dishonor my son and my family if I don't. We dishonor those who are no longer here to stand up to addiction if we don't, and we dishonor every person that is currently living in long-term recovery if we don't. We can win the war on addiction. I believe in recovery. I've seen it. It's possible, and it's real. Make no mistake about it. My son's journey to recovery was and is still filled with incredulous challenges, but fighting for treatment to stay alive should not be one of them. Thanks, guys.
Thank you to Julianne and to RAISE, which is Recovery, Advocacy in Saratoga, for all the amazing work you do. I'm next going to introduce Claudia Frizzell. She's with FIS. And
Hi, good afternoon. I'm really short, so in case you didn't notice. How's that? Is that better? Can you guys hear me? I could probably yell loud enough. My name's Claudia Frizzell. I consider myself a family in long-term recovery. I lost my brother to this terrible disease 25 years ago, and 15 years ago I lost my oldest son. In the last 25 years, I have joined every group, community organization, faith-based organization, rehab, family support group that didn't throw me out. And there were a couple that did throw me out. It's so important today, and I'm gonna be quick. We all have a lot to do, and I'm very excited about being here, and I am honored and humbled to be among so many hardworking, dedicated, truly inspiring, loving people. Thank you for allowing me to be here and giving me the opportunity. In the last couple of years, the last 4 years, I have met Rich Buckman and the Lyra community who have welcomed and embraced me and my insanity. Thank you so much. And then I met Anthony Rizzuto and Families in Supported Treatment and Double Check. And the most important thing that I learned is that with this being a family disease and there is no one answer, that no one of us can do this alone. No one answer is the perfect answer, but together we can do this.
And last, but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Ashley Livingston from 4 Warren, Washington.
Hi guys, I'm Ashley and I'm a young person in sustained recovery, and to me that means that I have almost 3 years, from any mood or mind altering substances in my system. 24 hours is a miracle. I just want to say that 24 hours is a miracle. So I just want to thank you all for being here and supporting recovery, because recovery really does rock. What recovery has given to me today is that I'm able to be a sister, I'm able to attend my brother's swim meets, I'm able to be a better person in general. Even driving, I'm a better driver because I don't flip out on other people. I'm serious, you know? And we can still advocate for ourselves, and I'm just so honored that you guys asked me, so I want to thank, Bob and Stephanie for asking me. And for all of you being here today, and together we're going to raise our voices today. You know, nothing about us without us. That's Friends of Recovery New York. And they've helped the local organizations so much, at least ours and Ray's, I know for a fact. And, that's where it really needs to start, because we know what our communities need. You know what I mean? And so we need to start speaking up and saying, this is what our community needs. These people on my shirt, these are just a fraction of my friends and loved ones that I've lost to this disease. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm sick of burying my friends and my family. When you step over one person, you're not just stepping over them, you're stepping over their whole family. They have children, they have mothers. We had some mothers speak, and I quite frankly am sick of doing this. So together today, let's raise our voices. I agree with what you said, Charlie. The 50 million, it's not enough. This is gonna help minutely. We need to continue to do this, and this is just the beginning, because today is the day that we're going to start talking to them. But the conversation doesn't end here, guys. When you go home, you need to make appointments with your legislatures and be meeting them in their home offices and continue to push for this, because we're the only ones that can make the change. United we stand, divided we fall. So let's get it.
This is 3 months to the day that my brother, husband, and I were with my mom as she drew her last breath. And here we are, 3 months later. I've been able to go to some of the recovery rallies that would be held in September, but I've never been able to come to the Recovery Advocacy Day. Selfishly, you all knew my mom, many of you knew my mom and her work as someone who was in sobriety for 40 years, and as someone who was passionate about having people recover from their addictions. Selfishly for me, it's really hard. I'm very emotional because I was so blessed to have her as my mom. But I was able to have that blessing because she had 40 years of recovery. When she decided to name me, my name is very unusual. She found it in a name book, and she picked it out because the name means God's promise fulfilled. And that's not really a comment about me so much. I mean, I guess I'm pretty good, but really it's a comment about my mom, because she, spent her 20s drinking herself almost to death, but she got sober because there were supports available in her community, exactly the kinds of things you're advocating for, so that way she could get sober. And she got her college degree, and then she became a counselor for people who have addictions. And then she became an executive director in Livingston County, and then in Cattaraugus County, and she was running programs. And then she became involved in For New York, and she was one of the founders of For New York. And, in her recent years, she had been a treatment professional for a long time, and she always was available to provide resources, but For New York was her baby. She was so passionate about For New York. It was the thing that, when we would talk about it, it was something that had so much of her energy and love. And so I'm so excited that For New York is now at this point with the increased funding that there is not just my mom being the de facto executive director and one like part-time employee, that For New York has, you know, a policy director and a communications director and, you know, a CEO with all this experience, and that there's all these people in this room, that this is the 7th year that there's this event, and that you're all here together to go to tell legislators, you know what? You know, so there can be more people who are for 40 years later. I want the people who are here young and in recovery to spend 40 years in recovery, to have kids who are sober, because I got raised, my brother and I got raised, the cycle of addiction was broken for us. And that is because of
What's your name and what made you come out today?
Hi, my name is Deb Rhodes, and I'm a board member for Friends of Recovery New York, and I'm here to support recovery services, to tell our legislators that recovery supports are critical at this time, and for families, for friends, and for people in recovery.
Can you just tell me your name and why it was important for you to come out today?
Sure. My name is John Coppola. I'm Executive Director for the New York Association of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Providers. It was actually important to be here for a couple of reasons today. First, and most importantly, is to really support Friends of Recovery New York and the growth of their organization, and to add some support, for their voice as they go down and lobby the Capitol for important issues supporting recovery, prevention, and treatment. The other one is really to honor Laura Elliott Engel, who was the original founder of For New York, a good friend of mine who passed away in the last year, and just to really recognize her and to thank the group for really putting her good work into action.